Welcome to Diary of a Sheep Dairy Farmer, where we talk all things dairy sheep, from breeding to lambing to milking, and everything in between and outside. I'm your host, Becca, owner, operator, and glorified farmhand of Hidden Hollow Sheep Dairy. Welcome back, guys. We are still in full swing of lambing, as well as trying to get some farm work done, such as disking, watering, and the never-ending job of fence work, as well as deal with some off-farm functions my husband has going on. I had someone ask me after last week that since I do breed, raise, and keep my own rams, what am I looking for in replacement rams? It can't be as extensive as what I look for in my replacement ewes. And while that is true, it's also not. This could honestly be a pretty short one because I'm not really sure how to explain what I want in a ram. I can look out over my lamb flock and I can pick out the rams that, yep, that one's a good one. I like that one. I want to keep that one. But to be able to articulate that to where you can understand what I'm looking for, may be a little difficult because I have a hard time even explaining it to my husband. I know what I like, and everybody has their own ideas as to what is an ideal ram. So there are the three obvious things I look for, the three T's again: teeth, toes, and testicles. Since we are dealing with rams, not ewes, I'm not looking at their teats. As with the ewe lambs I want to keep for replacements, I look to mom for straight teeth. Nothing worn down or crooked, and I should clarify, wearing of the teeth will happen with older ewes, but it shouldn't be excessive and shouldn't be at all in a younger ewe. I look at the hooves to make sure they are sturdy and not weak. I don't want their hooves crumbling due to weak walls. I want them to be a little harder, a little firmer. When we had horses, we always checked anything we bought for weak hooves. You don't want soft hooves or cracked hooves, something that you know will be a problem down the line. Same with sheep. You want their hooves to stand up to time. If you don't have a way to naturally wear them down like I do for your ewes, you want something that will keep up even if you have to trim them every couple of months. And you will. Just because they have good hooves doesn't mean you're still not going to have to take care of them. It is just an upkeep that you need to be aware of that you will have to do with your sheep. When we bought our first ram, so very long ago, we were told to look for the one with the biggest set of testicles. The bigger the testicles means more sperm, which means more babies. True or not, that is how we have always looked at it. So that is the number one factor we look for in every one of our ram lambs. We look to see who has the biggest testicles, and then we look at the genetics. Who's his daddy? I tend not to keep any ram lambs from under the age of 5. They still have plenty of life in them, so to speak, so I'm not looking to replace that lamb with one of his offspring at this time. That has come to bite me in the butt. I had a very, very favorite ram. I loved this ram, and he was, I know, never make a pet out of your ram, but I did. He was out of my best milking line of my ewes. His mom, I had her for about 4 years before she died. She was old when we got her. She died of old age. I think he was one of the last lambs I got out of her, and he was my buddy. If I went out into the ram pasture and the other rams were kind of kicking it up and, you keep an eyeball on him, he would literally put himself between me and the rest of the rams. I loved that ram. I miss him so much. He was so good. His disposition, his temperament, the traits he passed on to his lambs. And he died last year. He was only 4 years old. I never kept a ram lamb from him. And I regret that very, very, very much. But I figured I had more time. I wasn't looking to replace him yet because I figured he still had several years left in him. So just because I don't keep a ram for myself from a specific ram under the age of 5 doesn't mean that that ram lamb won't work for someone else. So I always keep that in the back of my head when assessing potential. I try not to oversaturate my flock with one ram's genetics. I have my favorites, and I do tend to want to keep all their ram lambs, but it makes no sense to do so when Daddy can still do his job. This year I have a ram that is a 2020 ram, so he again is 4 years old, and I have 2 exceptional ram lambs out of him. And I told my husband, I said, they're sturgeon babies. We don't need a sturgeon baby. We still have sturgeon. And he just looked at me and said, sturgeon won't live forever. And he's right. He won't live forever. And of course, they're both black. And I am a sucker for a black lamb. So odds are I will probably keep them both as replacements, and then as they get older, reassess them as to which will fit my breeding program a little better, and then keep one and sell one. So I want to see if I have kept any of this lamb's male siblings in the past. Again, this goes back to not saturating my flock with one ram's genetics. If I keep too many brothers, it will limit who they can be bred to, and then I find myself using one more than the other or not at all, and then that kind of defeats the purpose of keeping both of them. Like I said, I am drawn to the flashy and colored rams. I love my black lambs and my spotted lambs, but I also know the dad who threw those ram lambs has a ton of ewes in the flock. So I have to take into consideration how many ewes I have out of a certain older ram before I keep his little ram lambs. A perfect example of this is my ram Ace. He was the second ram I bought. I guess technically my husband bought him. He was our first dairy ram. He was king of the flock, and we used him on everything. Our flock was small back when we got him, and I let him cover all the ewes. I think we only had like 25 ewes at that time. So for about 2 years running, he was the only ram we used. And then I bought a second ram because he had daughters that I was keeping because we were building the flock, and I didn't want to cover his daughters with him, so I bought a second ram. And then I got smart and I split the flock. So half of the older ewes went with Ace and half of them went with Easy, and then I could swap their daughters. Ace could cover Easy's daughters and Easy could cover Ace's. But then we had to buy a third ram to cover the offspring, and that is a very condensed version of how we went from 1 ram to 20. As the ewe flock grew, so did the ram flock. And so did my detailed record keeping. Even knowing to look for good teeth, good hooves, and big testicles, how do I know what ram will help improve the genetics in my flock? This is where I look at mom's milking record if she has one. And if she doesn't, I keep looking. I look at grandma's milking record or great grandma's milking record. There are some sheep that just raise lambs and won't ever be milked. And so if there are no milking records, I look at her bag. Once I had a gal buy a ram lamb from me. I was trading her for another ram. This was back when I still had my Icelandics, and I thought that was all I would ever have, my small little Icelandic flock and 2 rams. So yeah, I guess Ace was actually the third ram I bought, but still my first dairy ram. Anyways, back to the topic. I was trading 1 ram lamb for another new Icelandic blood in my flock. This gal wanted the lamb whose mom had the biggest udder. She didn't care if he was small, single, twin. She just wanted the ram whose mom had the biggest udder. According to her, that's the ram who will pass on those genetics. Honestly, I can't say I have ever noticed if my rams pass on this trait, but it's something to think about. Since 99% of my ram's offspring that will be kept will be ewes, I look for what he will pass on. I want a sturdy ram. Good legs, straight back, rounded back end. I want a big butt that will be passed on to the ewes. I want them to have good birthing hips, so to speak. And I find my best rams give me those ewes. The ones I don't have to worry about pulling a lamb, who give birth completely unassisted, which is a huge bonus for me. I always want the pretty ram lambs. The ones with the soft faces and softer fleeces. The ones that stand out. Maybe they're a little thicker than the others. Maybe they stand a little taller. Maybe they were out of a favorite ewe that I know won't make a cut and I want to keep her genetics in the flock, even if I have several of her daughters. You've heard the saying, the best of the best of the best. That's what we want here. The best milkers, the best genetics, the best parasite resistance, the best temperament. Yeah, that's a big one for me. I refuse to keep a jerk of a ram on my farm. Their temperament must be exceptional. Our first 3 dairy rams were all brought in from outside the farm. We got lucky. All 3 had amazing dispositions and personalities, and they all passed those on to their offspring. If I pick out a ram lamb that meets all my other requirements but doesn't have a good disposition, in other words, he tries to bite or butt, I won't keep him, no matter how much I want to. When my daughter was little, it was for her sake. She grew up running wild around the farm and had no fear. Okay, she still has no fear. But at 5 years old, she was riding the bulls when we still had cattle. At 8, she tried picking the feet of a yearling colt and nearly got her arm broke when he kicked at her. Still didn't stop her from trying the next time I wasn't looking. She's fearless. I came home from work one day and she was down at the barn. And she was probably 14, 15. And she was oh so proud of herself. She had taken my mare and was riding her. And to this day, I'm just absolutely flabbergasted. This mare had never been ridden before. So not only did my daughter get a bit and bridle on her, a saddle on her, and riding her barefoot, no less. No helmet, just happy as a lark. You know, Mom, she didn't really like the bit too much, but other than that, she's fine. I'm still a little speechless to this day. Best dang horse, I'm telling you. But yeah, was a 3-year-old, I guess she was technically a 4-year-old mare. Never been ridden. Been worked, groundwork forever and ever. Best disposition, calm as all get out, never been ridden. Hadn't even started really working with her on putting any weight on her back. I just hadn't had time yet. And my daughter wanted to ride. And her old horse had died. And she decided to take mine without realizing mine was not broke to ride yet. So this is why I have to have very, very calm animals on our farm. I can't keep anything that might be an issue. Our bulls were docile, our horses were docile, our rams have to be docile as well. I wish I could say my daughter grew out of that stage of her life thinking she was the animal whisperer of all known creatures, but I can't. Some days I can only imagine what I'm going to come home and find that she's brought home. Have you seen that guy that says white women ain't afraid of nothing? That's my kid. So a calm spirit, docile manner is essential for any of my rams. And we start working with them from the time they are a couple months old, letting them know right and wrong behavior and assessing them for any, we'll just say, jerkiness. So yeah, teeth, toes, testicles, mom's genetics, and disposition. That makes up what I use to assess my ram lambs and decide who stays and who gets banded. Does that encompass everything? No. I can go out to my pen right now and I can pick out probably 5 rams that I'd be like, yep, those 5 are keepers, but those are the only 2 I want to keep for me. And I can tell you, because of who their dad is, how they look, and they're only, I think my oldest one is barely 2 weeks old. He was born on the 19th of April, and he's a beautiful ram. He would definitely make somebody a great flock sire, but not me. And I can't tell you why. Because in my head, he's gorgeous, but in my heart, he's just not quite it. And I think people get it, because everybody has their own idea of what they like. And so sometimes it's really hard to say what you like. What do you like about this one? What do you like about that one? I always hated that question in school. Well, I like it because I like it. I don't know how to explain it all the time. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap this up here. As always, I appreciate you being here, and I thank you for your support. I would be ever so grateful if you would leave a review or share this podcast with your dairy sheep loving friends. Anything to get the word out. As always, you can find me on Instagram at Diary of a Sheep Dairy Farmer, and if you want to follow the chaos around the farm, you can find me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Hidden Hollow Sheep Dairy. If there are any topics you are interested in, or if you are interested in being a guest on the podcast, please let me know. Thanks for being here, guys. We'll talk to you again next week.